Hi, everybody. For those of you that are joining us on this live stream, direct from Maine East High School, welcome. We're glad you're here. And we're kind of hanging out in a Zoom meeting right now, chit-chatting a little, so we'll get started. Again, thanks for joining us. My name is Mike Pressler. I'm principal here at Maine East. And we're here to give you some information about the start of the new school year. We know that there are a lot of questions. We still have a lot of questions as well. But we have a proposal for what we think is the best of our options to start the school year. So we want to make sure that we describe this to you. You're going to have the ability throughout this afternoon. I sent an email, or the school sent an email to all of our parents with a link to a Google form. Should use that link to submit any questions you've got. Maybe you already did. You can now, or as you're listening, if something comes up and you're not understanding, you want a clarification, or even after we're done, you can still use that. And we're going to be monitoring all of those questions. We'll try to answer as many as we can tonight. For the things we don't, we're going to be putting together a document we call an FAQ, which is a frequently asked questions. And we'll make that available to everybody so that you can review. My experience is I read those and I learn all kinds of things I hadn't even thought about in terms of the questions. So please ask those individual questions, because everything you pose to us is going to help us make an even better, stronger plan to support our students in the coming school year. Want to introduce, I've got some colleagues here with me tonight who are kind of checking the questions. And if you have specific questions for some of them when we get toward the end of the session, or in many instances, they know a lot of very detailed information that I don't, based on the work they've been doing over these last several weeks in the summer. So I am pleased to introduce, as I'm looking at the screen. Sorry, the clock is going off there. We'll wait for a moment. And we're back. All right. First, in your upper left-hand corner, I believe, is Jenny Burko, who is one of our amazing, fantastic Maine East teachers, teaches math, and she is also one of our building instructional coaches. She works very closely with our teaching staff as well. Next down, so I'm going counterclockwise, is Ms. Sarah Georgievic, who is yet another of our very, very amazing, fantastic superstar teachers. Ms. Georgievic is our director of orchestras, and she is also a building instructional coach. Continuing on, we've got Mr. Joaquin Stevenson, who is new to Maine East these last couple of weeks. He's our new associate principal for student experiences. And continuing around, we have Mr. Michael Wardick, who is the associate principal for student and family services. That's counselors, social workers, psychologists, career services, things like that. Then up top, next to me, is Ms. Allison Guest, who is our associate principal, for teaching and learning. And right smack dab in the Alice position, if you're thinking Brady Bunch, we have Mrs. Nellie Diaz, who is our assistant principal, one of three of assistant principal for student supports. So I want to thank them for being here and spending some time with us, and feel free to direct any questions to them. If you have something in the chat, that's great. And we're going to get started. We've got a few slides to go through. As we're getting those slides up, the other thing I want to have in mind is I'm going to give you a lot of information, and really the information is going to be for you parents to make a determination in these next few days, if you don't already know, whether you are going to send your student back to school, or whether they're going to be fully virtual for first semester, meaning they do not attend school physically in the building at Maine East. But we want to give you quite a bit of information so that you're making an informed decision. And again, we will look for your input, because what we have now is a proposal, but there's always room for some modification or improvement. So for tonight, the goals for our meeting are to make the process and the way we've come to decisions as clear and transparent as we can. We want to talk about what we're planning for safety as far as we know right now. We want to give you some insight into what it's going to look like from the student perspective from the time I come into the building until the time I leave when I'm in the building. That's going to be very important. We want to help give you good information to clarify your decisions about, is your student going to be in school or fully virtual? And we want to ask for your help also. So moving on, the first is about the information that we got as a district. So we've gotten a lot of information from the state of Illinois, from the Illinois State Board of Education, otherwise known as ISB, and from the Illinois Department of Public Health, IDPH. We're familiar with the governor's plan to sort of reopen the state. We know that right now we're in phase 4 revitalization. However, we are seeing some increase in some areas of the state, just a little bit, in terms of infections and things. So we know that it is possible in that Restart Illinois plan that we may be pivoting back. We could be in phase 3, we could be in phase 2, we could stay in phase 4. I think we're all looking very much forward to the day that we're in phase 5, but that probably isn't going to happen until there's a vaccine. But the plans that we are making are really reflective of phase 4 guidelines. And we are also making preparations to be as nimble as we can to be able to serve our students and our families if we have to move back to phase 3 or phase 2. If we come back, we stay in phase 4, or when we get to phase 5, it's going to be a really easy pivot from what we're proposing to get back into school, every student, every day, full time. And as always, we are referring to the plan from the Illinois State Board of Education and their guidance. We'll share these slides on our web pages, and you are going to be able to look at that document. You could Google it if you wanted to. It was released on the 23rd of June, and there have even been some modifications from the state since that was released. But it's very specific about what we need to do to ensure the safety of our students and our staff as we're coming back to school, as well as providing a very solid high level of educational experience. And I think we're ready for another slide. The superintendent, if you are a current Maine student, returning Maine student, in other words, Dr. Wallace, our superintendent, sent a communication to all of our families on May 18th, which was a Monday. And in that, essentially, he said for next year, because a lot of people were saying, well, what's next year going to look like? And we didn't know, but he very accurately predicted there really are 3 sort of big scenarios. One would be if we were in that phase 3, phase 2, heaven forbid, phase 1, that we are fully virtual. So nobody is in the building. We are learning from home. We are teaching from home because that is the way that we really try to eliminate any spread of the virus, sort of thing. He also outlined a blended plan, which simply means a mix of in-person instruction under some very strict guidelines to make sure that we are staying healthy and safe, combined along with some online instruction. So full virtual is fully online. Blended is a combination of in-person and online, or then the other option, again, but that would be pretty much phase 5, if we hopefully develop a vaccine and that's effective, would be full in-person, so that school pretty much looks the way school traditionally has for years and years before COVID. The other information that we got that's been really helpful to us is we've had about 100 District 207 staff members that have been working hours and hours and hours every week for about the last 4 weeks, to lay out some possible plans and then to refine them, to go back. And been a lot of work there. Those large groups have been composed of our teachers, our support staff members, our administrators, and we've also gotten input from our parents. In mid to late June, we sent a parent survey. We had nearly 3,700 responses. About 20% of those responses were from East. And I would say that when we compared building by building by building, the responses were actually, from my standpoint, surprisingly consistent, regardless of which building students were attending. We also surveyed our staff to find out what their concerns are about health, about safety, about the instruction, the integrity of our instruction. 705 respondents, all District 207 staff members, and that is the very great majority of our employees district-wide. And then we just recently, in the last couple of weeks, surveyed our students. We had about 1,900 students respond out of approximately 6,400 students district-wide. About 30% of the students were from East, and we got some really, really great feedback from them as well. So the way we've sort of informed our plan is from the information we've gotten from the state and the information that we've gotten from our families, our students, and our staff members. What we have heard loud and clear from parents is that they want high quality instructional experiences for their kids. They want social contact for their students. We know it was really, really rough for everybody, but especially our students, not to be able to be with each other like we were for so many weeks last spring. They want to see increased structure in students' lives. In other words, we want schedules, we want routine. They want opportunities for their students to receive support, whether that's academic, social, emotional, whatever that may be. They want access to extracurriculars, co-curriculars, athletics, and families want to have some options based on their needs, whether those are medical, physical needs, whether they're educational needs, social, emotional. So in other words, parents really want access to the way we've traditionally done school at Maine Township for many, many years to deliver an outstanding experience to our students. We hear you, and we all want to do that. That being said, now, that's a balancing act because we know loud and clear what our parents want in a perfect world, what our students want, what our staff wants. We also know that there are some realities about COVID, about the status, about making sure that we follow the legal and state guidelines to do what we can to help ensure that people are safe, that we don't have greater spread of COVID, that we see a decrease in those numbers. So the plan that we've developed and that we are showing you tonight, our proposal, is very much a balancing act. And that being said, there's some trade-offs, and there will continue to be some trade-offs, I think, throughout the year as we try to be as flexible as we possibly can. As we realize that some things work, we're going to build on them. As we realize some things aren't necessarily so great, we're going to try to make them great. But that's really the big mission moving forward. I want to talk a little bit about safety. So what do we know right now in terms of our routines, just the way we do business every day that are going to help our staff, our students and our staff be safe? So this is based on 3 commitments: social distancing, the use of PPE, personal and protective equipment, and hygiene, just washing hands, using hand sanitizer, sorts of things. We know for social distancing, we are going to limit the number of students in a classroom so that we can maintain safe social distancing to the greatest extent possible. That means for an average classroom at District 207, which is about 600 square feet, typically we're going to be able to get 12 to 15 students in those classes, and that will allow us to be at or just very close to that 6-foot social distancing. If we can be further apart, we will. That takes us then to the use of PPE. All students and all staff will need to wear masks at all times. Now, there are a very, very limited number of medical exceptions. Those are going to be documented, and we'll handle them on a case-to-case basis. But the combination of being socially distanced and wearing the PPE, we know we're seeing more and more research and study that tells us that dramatically reduces the chance of infection or of passing COVID along. And then hygiene. We're going to have hand sanitizer in every class instructional space. One of the routines is going to be the minute you enter, you sanitize. Before you leave a class, you sanitize as you're heading out. We're going to have some protocols in place so that we will be cleaning our classrooms, desks throughout the day. And for other, like the high traffic areas, restrooms, things like that, they're going to be continuously cleaned and sanitized by our building and maintenance crews throughout the day. We'll have additional staff on during the day when students are here to work with that, and we'll have some opportunities for a little more intensive deep cleaning, and I'll refer to that a bit later. So those are the commitments, and it's that keeping people safe that really drives a lot of the proposed schedule that I'll talk about shortly. So when I go into a class, that means the desks are going to be spread out to the extent possible. There is assigned seating. When I walk into a class as a student, I am going to sit in the same desk every time I am in that class, unless I am reassigned by the student for a particular reason. We will probably keep pretty much regular amount of furniture in a classroom, but we're going to use a half or a third of it. The reason being, if we can schedule our classes based on the number of rooms we've got in the classes we have to offer, if we can not schedule a class on alternate periods, that's great. That means we can get in and we can clean the room. But if we have to schedule classes back to back, it means that we can use a different set of furniture that no student has been working at. So again, we're really thinking about what we can do. I think there will be a role for students to help play, to help make sure that their immediate work areas are sanitized as well. But we're working through the protocols, making sure that everybody is safe as we do that. The only exception to, the other thing about the classroom space is desks are really going to be facing front. Why? Because we know that minimizes any face-to-face sort of exposure, and that again cuts down on the risk of passing virus from one person to another. And teachers are going to remain at the front of the class as much as possible. Again, all desks facing forward and teachers at the front of the class is not what we've worked for, but it's what we need to do now to try to maximize the safety of our students and of our teachers and our staff as well. When we talk about PPE, all students and staff are going to be required to wear a mask in school at all times. I'm going to say this again and again. You're going to get tired of hearing me say it, but I'm going to continue to say it. We need to make sure that people are wearing masks all the time, even when we're social distancing, especially indoors. At times, we may be using face shields. Very specific instances when we have classes, for example, where there is language acquisition. So if we have students that are English language learners receiving those services, or if we have students in world language, maybe that the teacher is wearing a shield and there may be an additional shield as well, something, but we know that it's important for the language acquisition to be able to see a person's mouth moving as they're speaking. So again, there's some considerations, but we're going to do everything we can to keep people safe. The only exceptions about wearing a mask in school are while you are actually putting food and drink in your mouth. Again, so it's a lot of mask on, mask off. And when we're done, we have a little social time. We're going to have to be reminding each other all the time about masks are back on. As we've said, there could be some documented medical exceptions why people would not wear masks. We'll review them on a case-by-case basis, and then we'll double down on ensuring that those people are socially distanced so that everybody is as safe as they can be. We talk about hygiene. Hand sanitizer used whenever we're entering and leaving a space. Just sort of a little trivia bit, a factoid. We are estimating that for our Maine Township schools, the number of classroom students we have, we are going to go through approximately 4 55-gallon drums of hand sanitizer a month in the schools to get through that. So we'll have that in place for students to use. There are also going to be some extra disinfection protocols for the equipment and for the lab spaces in science, career and technical education. So we're thinking like foods labs, excuse me. We're thinking about business labs, about fashion design, things where we're very much hands-on. Fine arts obviously is very much hands-on, and we'll have those same sort of protocols that we're talking about to really ensure that our students are safe and that we are not promoting spread of any sort of disease. Excuse me. There'll also be increased cleaning in the bathrooms, classrooms, and high-touch spaces. I'll talk a little more about the schedule as we do that. I want to talk now about the student experience. So I want to kind of walk all of us through what this might look like if I'm a student at Maine East and I am not even yet in the building to start my day when I am physically present in the building. I'm going to self-certify even before I come to school. And actually our staff members are going to do the same thing. So that becomes a matter of, I get up, hey, I feel good, everything's fine. I haven't been exposed to anybody with COVID. I'm still have my sense of taste and smell. No cough, no sneeze, no fever, no traveling. So that's all the protocols that probably all of us have answered at multiple times. And somebody's going to certify and say, yep, we're all good. Then when I come into the building, we're working on the technology. There'll be some way that I can show my smartphone device, whatever, and it's going to flash green. It's going to say, okay, Mike's good to go. You're in the building, fine. If I didn't self-certify or if I don't have that, then we'll have a process in place where we're going to be able to quickly verify through questions, probably do a very quick forehead reading in terms of temperature, and be able to say, yep, you're good to go. Let's get in the building and go. So I get into the building. This means ahead of time, we're going to be communicating about, for students and staff, where they should enter the building, because we want them to come in as close to the first, wherever they're going, their classroom or their assigned area. Because again, throughout the day, from the time you leave, time you come to the time you leave, you are going to have an assigned area, like a room and a desk or a chair or some sort of place. So we really want to go the shortest distance possible, and we want to minimize the amount of time that students are spending in the hallways during a passing period with a lot of other people. So you're going to be coming in. When you come in, you're actually going to find, oh my goodness, almost every hallway and staircase in the building is going to be designated as single direction, as one way. So even though I come in and my classroom is right over there, the hallway is going this direction, and I'm going to have to go the long way around. Why do we do that? Because we then greatly minimize, if not eliminate, the face-to-face encounters, which have a higher level of potential risk. So they're going to be those single direction hallways and stairs. And as I mentioned, there are no optional spaces. So I'm guessing most people listening now probably are returning students, parents, students, juniors, and seniors. We've had study options. So I don't have an assigned class. I can go to the library. I can go to room 230. I can go down to the cafeteria. Not going to be able to do that. You're going to have an assigned area. We're going to take an attendance. You're going to need to go there, because we have to have the ability, when somebody tests positive or catches COVID, not if, but when, we are going to have the ability to contact trace, to have an understanding of who may have been exposed, and even more importantly, who hasn't been exposed or who is not at great risk, because we don't want to shut school down or have any, we don't want to have people not be able to be in school unless it's absolutely necessary for health reasons. So again, those options areas are no longer going to be optional. In terms of our classroom experiences, you got social distancing from the teacher and the classmates. So at least 6 feet whenever possible. And that's combined with wearing the masks, which again, really reduces that risk of exposure. The bathrooms throughout the building are going to be supervised all day long throughout the day. There'll be a limited number of students that will be permitted into a bathroom. We'll be going into those bathrooms and sort of decommissioning or taking out of service a few of the toilets or urinals. So again, students are going to have to practice social distancing, and we're going to be having students logging, basically signing in and out when they enter a restroom, when they leave. Why? Again, so that we can do the contact tracing when that is necessary to do so, to determine who is not at risk or who may have been at risk. Collaboration, well, we know we value it, and it's super valuable and it's fun. And we were used to working face-to-face with our pods of 4 or 3 or whatever that looked like. Going to have to be socially distanced, so we're a ways apart. Probably a lot of our collaboration, even if we're still in the building together, is still going to be virtual through a Google Meet or through a Zoom session. And again, here I go, masks on at all times. For lunches, the plan right now is that, to the extent possible, students are going to be eating in class. Why? Because it eliminates a passing period. And again, we don't want to have any more passing periods for a day than we need to. We're putting a process in place, building it out, where you can either bring your own lunch, or you can order food from Quest first thing in the morning. There'll be an app, and if I ordered my lunch from Quest, I'm going to determine what my options are. Boom, 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 it's there. They're going to build my lunch, put it in a bag, put a tag on it that has my name on it, my room number, and that lunch is going to be delivered to whatever your second block class of the day is. And we've added some time to that period to be able to eat social distance. Again, you'll remove your mask, obviously, so that you're able to eat, and then put it right back up again. And those lunches are going to take place, as we said, for about 30 minutes at the end of the second scheduled block of the day. In terms of what typically have been self-directed spaces, As I've said now, the cafeteria is not going to be big, long tables where you would be able to go in. Those are going to be assigned spaces. I think we're on the next slide. And the library, again, the library has basically been gutted and is under construction if you go to the third floor. We're going to have, you'll be able to get some books for pleasure reading, but librarians are actually going to push into your classes, and they'll be doing a lot of work with you virtually throughout the year. You'll have the ability to check out a limited number of books, but you're going to be using a lot of digital resources. We're not planning to use any hall lockers. There will be no locker rooms for PE. We will not dress for PE class. And if, depending on your individual schedule, so for example, on my odd block day, again, we have the flipped lunches. So third period is the first block of the day. If I have third period lunch, meaning I don't have a scheduled class, I can come in at the beginning of the day, and I've got a place that'll be assigned, or I may be able to schedule an appointment with my counselor, social worker, get some additional help from a teacher or a TA, but you'll be assigned. If transportation is okay for you and you can get here, you don't need to arrive until first period if that's your first class of the day. And by the same token, if the last block of the day is not a scheduled class for me, then I can leave when I'm done with the day. Why? Because again, the fewer people we have in the building, the better it is in terms of reducing the risk of spreading infection. We're working on additional options for all of the other services when students are in the building, but not in a specific class. And we'll talk to those a little bit more a little bit later. Special note for any students receiving services through special education or as English language learners. State guidance tells us very specifically that ISB, the guidelines for reopening schools, that we are to prioritize in-person instruction based on individual need. So anybody with an IEP or receiving ELL services is probably going to be in class 4 or 5 days a week, as opposed to an alternating schedule that I'm going to talk about in just a moment. The related services for students with IEPs are going to be provided in person, or if we cannot actually be socially distanced in person, then we're going to provide them virtually, but synchronous. So that means kind of like you're watching this live stream in almost like real time when I'm speaking and you're hearing. That would be the same way that we would be delivering those related services. And also, at this point, there's been no change in the timelines for evaluations and annual reviews. So right now, we're still online for that. However, an eval or an annual review might be done virtually because that is a more efficient way to get the team together. On the next slide, I've got a copy, an example of, does this slide look dark to everybody else? Okay, as long as we're not going to sleep here. I've got sort of a mock-up, and it doesn't include start times, but essentially we are proposing that the school day is going to start at about 8:20. Might change just a little bit as we fine tune and are able to build our plans out over the next coming days and weeks. Thank you. And it will end at about 3 or 3:10, something like that. So it's pretty close to the regular scheduled school day before COVID, while we were still in school earlier in the spring semester. What you'll notice is for Monday, if I look down under that Monday column, there's some teacher time in the morning, because again, we know that the teachers, especially as we're working remotely and we don't get to see each other as frequently in class, really need that time. And then there'll be 30-minute blocks. Now, unlike the office hours last spring, which were sort of optional and sometimes teachers met, sometimes they didn't, the expectation is teachers will be available, students will check in, we will take attendance, and that's going to be a time when the teacher may set the stage for what you're going to be doing in the coming week. It could be a time when they're going to be doing some very specific sort of team building, because sometime we're going to be back in school together. And we want to do everything we can to be in the best shape possible to take advantage whether we're blended, meaning you're in school part-time, or if we're fully virtual, how does that work for us? Or when the day we're looking forward to that we're back in every day, everybody, all the time, that time's gonna be important. So that's a Monday. On those Mondays, it means that there are very, very few people in school. There may be some students receiving special ed or ELL services. There could be, that's a great time when kids need to come in if they need to see a psychologist or a social worker. If you're doing some specific work with integrated career services, internships, things like that, that could be really prime time when you're able to get into the building and it's going to be safe. It's also going to be a time when we're going to do some deep cleaning with our custodial crews. So we really get into things more deeply than we're able to on a daily basis, although that's also a very high level of cleaning. When you look at then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, take a look just at Tuesday and Wednesday. So on Tuesday and Wednesday, you're going to see that says 3A, 3B, 1A, 1B, so on and so forth. So what that means is that we're going to follow an odd block schedule on those days. On Tuesdays, so for every third period class, before school ever starts, we're going to look at all of those class lists and we're going to determine, we're going to split the students in half. And half of those students are going to be designated as an A group and half are going to be designated as a B group. So on Tuesday, if I am in the A group, I'm going to be in school and I'm going to be in the classroom with my third period teacher. We're going to be doing school. If I happen to be a B group student, I'm going to be signing in virtually from home, and I am going to be participating in that class in some function as well with the A students at the same time. So it's going to require you to come in at the appointed time, whatever the instruction your teacher gives you, and there'll be a way for you to participate in class. We do the same thing for the other class periods. You can see then how lunch is sort of embedded after the second block of the day. Now, if I go to Wednesday, now it's going to be the same thing, except if I was a B group student, now I'm in school. The A group student who was there the day before is at home. From home, they're going to log in at the start of third period, and there's going to be something additional that may be going on synchronously at the same time as the class, or it may be something that you're going to do for a little bit of time and come back together with the class. There are many options for us, but there's going to be a schedule and a routine that you're going to follow. Then we do the very same thing for our even block classes on Thursday and Friday. But what this does for us is on any of those block days, we only have approximately half of the students, which for us at Maine East is about 900 students in the building, as opposed to over 1,800 students. And again, we will include a schedule at specific times, but we didn't want the times to sort of get in the way, because I think we're also, as we start to schedule and we're all learning new routines, we're gonna have to be a little bit flexible with how long it takes us to get through the hallways and things like that too. Then, what about the instructional practices? What are our teachers doing? What are our students going to experience in terms of that content area, that specific class? We actually started the most intensive professional development related to virtual learning delivery services that I have seen, and I'm starting my 29th year as an administrator in this district this year. What I've seen is unprecedented in terms of just the level of hours and the hard work our teachers and our administrators, our department chairs, our district admins have been doing there. When we talk about virtual learning, again, I cannot stress strongly enough, this is not the same as it was last spring. It had a shortened day where we started later, we ended earlier, kids may or may not have checked in. The grading practice that we were told by the state was we couldn't do anything that really harmed a grade. Those are not the conditions now. This is more like normal, regular school. So it's much more synchronous than in the spring, as I just described to you. To start a class, pretty much the expectation is going to be that you log in virtually, or if you're in the building, you're there on time, we start class, and you're going to participate along with the students. If you're virtual, you're participating with students who are in class. So a lot more synchronous learning than we had last spring. Not 100%, but much more synchronous. Also, in terms of grades, you can't opt in and out. You got to be in class and you got to do the work to earn the grade. Attendance counts. We're going to take attendance. On that Monday virtual day, we're going to take attendance. On the block days, we're taking attendance. Whether you're in the building physically or whether you're there for the virtual day, we are taking attendance. So that being said, that's kind of once we get into the routine, and we've been doing this for a few weeks and everybody knows the drill. For the first 3 weeks of school, we're still going to be following that block schedule largely with those alternating A-B days, but who's going to be in the building is a little bit different. And the reason that we're doing this is that we're starting with two major ideas in mind. One is that we frankly just want to start with fewer students in the building when we're, as a staff, understanding what it's like to have single direction hallways and to have to check in and out of restrooms and to have to provide lunch in class and all of those other things that are going to be related to the cleaning routines and the protocols for our support staff. And we know that for freshmen who are brand new to school, who don't know any of our teachers, though it's much more effective to build relationships in person. We also know for all the rest of students, you're going to have a bunch of teachers that you've never worked with. So you're going to have the ability to meet them in person and virtually. It's going to be a blend of both. But what we're going to do that first week of August 17th, Monday, August 17th is going to be another Teacher Institute day. So no students in school at Maine East on Monday the 17th. Starting on the 18th, so on the 18th and 19th, it'll be freshmen only in the building. On the 18th, that's an A day. So we will have informed freshmen ahead of time, whether they're in A groups or B groups. Half of the freshmen will come in the morning. There's going to be a welcoming orientation, some sort of fun stuff, socially distanced, keeping you safe, called Link Crew. And then you'll have a chance, we'll do some fun things for lunch. And then you'll have a chance to meet your teachers on the odd block schedule and a little bit abbreviated. And we're going to be starting to learn the safety routines and protocols in the classes. On that Tuesday the 19th, now it's the B group of freshmen, going to do the very same thing the A group did. In this case, you may not be signing in to the other group. We'll be more clear about that as we move forward. On Thursday and Friday, still it's only freshmen physically in the building, but on Thursday and Friday, all of your teachers are going to start to reach out to you virtually if you're a sophomore, junior, or senior. On the week of August 24th, Monday the 24th is senior day only, seniors only at Maine East High School. On that day, we want to make sure that you also learn the routines and protocols, get a sense, because you're going to have to build some new habits and break some old ones about how we get around the building. I want you to meet your teachers. And we also want to really work with our seniors about, look, we just watched a lot of our friends in the class of 2020 who ended their senior year and their careers at Maine East in a way that was very disappointing to them and frankly to all of us. If we had known everything at the start of last year that we know now, might we have arranged some of those really important senior events differently through the year? A lot of, traditionally we've always really loaded up at the end of the year, prom, senior breakfast. Obviously commencement's going to happen at the end of the year. But there are a lot of things throughout the year, and we really want to work with our seniors, especially as a staff, to make this the best year it possibly can be. If we all get to come back at some point, we're all in the building together, that's great. If not, we still want this to be a great year. You're wonderful, smart people with good ideas. You're going to share them with us. We're going to see what we can do, but we really want to be working with good partners with you to make this the best senior year it possibly can be. The rest of that week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 25th on, physically in the building will be freshmen, sophomores, and juniors, but again, only half of each class, A days and B days, so that you're getting in. We're now learning as a building. We've got about 600, 700 students in the building. Seniors, the teachers will be engaging with you virtually, and you'll have some other things going there, but we'll be sort of laying the groundwork for the rest of the year. Then on the week of the 31st, we're planning right now that Monday will be another teacher in service, because I'm pretty certain we are going to need some time to regroup, kind of figure out what worked really well in the first 2 weeks so far and what we didn't think of that we've got to build out. We just need some time to fine tune and make it work better for students. Then on that Tuesday, September 1st, now we start all students, 9th through 12th graders are going to be in the building, but again, A/B splits, so it's only half of each class each year in school, in other words, on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. As I mentioned, the rationale, we know that we want to give as much as we can some blocks of time for students to meet the staff face-to-face and each other in person early in the year. We know that there's some special preparation for freshmen and again for our seniors as we prepare this milestone year in your school career. And we know that we need to take some extra time to help everybody establish the safety routines, the procedures, sanitizing when you enter a classroom, before you leave a classroom, bathroom, so on and so forth. So we just want to start a little bit slow and ramp up so that this goes as smoothly as it possibly can. Now, COVID, what happens when we get a positive case? Not if, but when it will happen. Couple things. We are always in collaboration with the Illinois Department of Public Health. They guide us on school status. We have protocols that are already in place if we have some sort of an outbreak in a school. We have communication plans for our district specifically that are under construction. And as soon as we confirm and lock in a schedule, then we can really lock down all of those communication plans, but those are already largely built out. All of our plans follow the guidance prescribed by the Illinois State Board of Education, Illinois Department of Public Health, and all of the legal guidance and parameters that we need to follow to make sure that we are ensuring that individuals, both students and staff, are treated with privacy in terms of those matters, and that we're also communicating in the manner that we possibly can if there is some sort of a possible potential risk. So we're going to follow all of the prescribed guidelines. I've used the term contact tracing a number of times. So this is, again, what happens when we have a confirmed case. Somebody either tests positive for COVID, they're sick, student, staff, whoever it is in the building. Couple things. So contact tracing, they're very, very specific procedures. We have several staff members from all of our campuses at District 207 that either have taken or are taking contact tracing training through Johns Hopkins. It's a 6-hour online training. We have a minimum of 2 staff members per building. I suspect we'll have more that are completing the training right now. And if we needed to, we can implement this tracing immediately. I want to give you a couple of scenarios. So you're going to ask a lot of questions. And honestly, we could probably stay online for hours and hours. We're not going to do that. But you could probably ask all kinds of scenarios. And we're just going to touch on a couple. And understand that when we have a scenario, we're going to look at it on a case-by-case basis. We're going to follow our protocol quickly, efficiently, to ensure that people are safe and we are communicating appropriately with all of our community members. So what happens if your child's teacher begins the semester in person? Great. But then ends up a few weeks in, either gets sick or just tests positive asymptomatic for COVID. So first thing we know is the teacher is going to be out of school for at least 10 days from the onset and is going to demonstrate 72 hours without a fever or respiratory symptoms or 2 negative COVID tests 24 hours apart. There are all kinds of different criteria. We are immediately going to employ contact tracing for that staff member. So this goes back now to, all right, I'm going to take a look at the class. If we know that everybody was socially distanced in the way the classroom was set up between the teacher and the student desks, and everybody was wearing face masks, then the likelihood of any sort of transmission is very, very remote, virtually nil. That means that we would not need to quarantine an entire class. If, however, we know that there was a prolonged close exposure, then that's a different set of circumstances and we go through a different set of protocols. So any students and staff who are in close contact, if that was the case, would also quarantine for 14 days. That class would actually then go virtual. We do not plan to bring a sub in who doesn't know the content and hasn't set it up and doesn't have the relationship with students. As long as the staff member is able to teach from home, they're going to be teaching from home. Students will be in the class. We'll have a staff member who is, monitoring, making sure the kids are safe in the class, but the class is going to be, whenever possible, taught by the teacher. But if we had to have a teacher leave, we would teach it virtually. Some other possible scenarios. What if your younger child is exposed to COVID-19 in elementary school? So, you've got kids in multiple schools, somebody's exposed and your younger student needs to quarantine. That carries across to the older student as well. What if you as a parent you're working, or one of our students is exposed to COVID-19 at work? Then you're going to quarantine for 14 days. This is actually an instance that sort of happened a few weeks ago in one of our schools, or in a school, not actually our school. We had a bunch of students who were in church youth group, and they were maintaining safe distancing. They had their masks on, they were apart. It was a great retreat. Everything was good. Kids were all excited, fired up, decided they were going to celebrate, decided to go out for ice cream, and went to the ice cream place and took their masks off, and they were not socially distanced, and they were right close together. And a member of that youth group ended up having COVID. That meant that all of those kids had to quarantine for 14 days. So again, we could come up with multiple scenarios, but that just starts to give you some idea. But there are pretty clear guidelines based on the tracing and what we would need to do. But what it does mean is, if we had somebody who tested positive in the building, we're not shutting the whole school down. We're not necessarily shutting down an entire class. That's why the social distancing and the continuous, consistent use of face masks and PPE is so important, so that we can really verify that there has been minimal or no risk for others in the building. Now, this is where we need your input. You've got some important decisions to make if you have not already made your mind up. Next Monday, you should be receiving a survey from the district. So watch your email, please. That'll come out on the 20th. The anticipated date that the survey will close, and we want 100% of our families to complete the survey. So if you don't complete the survey, we're going to have to find you to contact you. You're going to determine whether you're okay with your student coming back for a blended experience, meaning they're in the building at least 2 days a week, maybe more if you are getting special ed or ELL services. But you're going to be coming back to the building. Or if you feel like, I'm not comfortable with that, I want my student to be fully virtual, fully online, you need to communicate that to us. You also have the ability in that survey to give us a lot of feedback, because we have not 100% locked into this plan. This is still a proposed plan, and there could be some changes based on the feedback that we get from our parents in all 3 of our buildings. So your feedback through that survey on Monday is super important. Also, the questions you're asking us through this Google form are really important. We're not going to be able to even begin to answer everything tonight, but as I said earlier, we will build out a frequently asked questions document. We'll be checking those, cross-referencing between the buildings, and we'll continue to update those, because as we finally arrive and lock into a definite schedule, there are going to be new developments that come along. We're going to have new processes that we're able to put in place. So there's going to be a continuous stream of information now to the start of school, and frankly, throughout the time school is open. But again, you're going to have the option to go full virtual. If you have a student has a medical need, if there's a medical concern in the family, you're just not feeling comfortable until there's a vaccine of some sort, that's a family decision, and we respect that. Support. What can you do starting right now? Please help everybody in our community, help everybody in our school with social distancing and the use of masks and PPE outside of school. We've just outlined our expectations for safety about what you're going to do when you come in the door until you leave the door. But it really doesn't do much good if the minute you walk out the door, you take off your mask and you stop social distancing. So that really needs to become a habit for all of us to help keep us all healthy and safe and happy, because our goal really is for our students and our staff to be healthy, happy, and here in school, the 3 H's. So I've been talking a whole bunch, and we have had these expert colleagues who have been monitoring what looked to me from facial expressions like a whole lot of questions coming up. So we're going to close out the slideshow and bring everybody back on screen, and they'll ask some questions and maybe answer some questions too.
All right, Dr. Pressler. So some of these questions, by the way, are going to be a repeat then from the last session,
Okay.
just so you know. So the first one is then, has there been any consideration of waiving school fees this year due to the pandemic?
Okay, so I believe, again, I've heard, haven't confirmed through conversation, but I think District 63 families were notified that fees in District 63 have either been eliminated, waived, or reduced. I'm not sure for the school year. We have not had any sort of extensive formal conversation as a district in 207 about that. I do know there are some individual fees that I believe we have removed because they're for supplies and materials that we're not going to use. For example, PE uniforms and PE locks. The other thing that I can tell you about the fees in 207 is that a big chunk of the fee that is paid goes to purchase the Chromebook that each student receives upon entering, that you own by the time you graduate. And those Chromebooks are integral to the work that we're going to do, whether you are fully virtual, blended, or if we're here all the time, because we do a lot of online resources and things like that. So I don't know the answer to that. At this point, the answer is no, we haven't considered it. But I'll certainly bring that back to the cabinet, the district administrators, and we'll have a conversation. And if that ends up being the case, we will communicate that.
Okay, Dr. Pressler, next question is there any consideration for having siblings at school on the same days during hybrid scheduling?
Absolutely. So I honestly don't, there may actually be a question on the questionnaire. I don't recall now. If not, we're going to, once we know who's fully virtual and who is blended, then we start to adjust class sizes. We start to determine who A and B students are. It is my intention that to the extent we are able to do so, we're going to reach out to families and we're going to find out whether you want siblings on the same day or whether you want them on alternate days. Because depending on what the schedule is for District 63 or for the families who may have other children in District 64 or 62, I don't know what their schedules look like yet. So I want to tell you, barring something I don't think exists, we're going to let you determine whether you want your kids on the same day or whether on an alternative day, because that helps with looking after younger students at home, whatever that is. We'll work with you. And if we get something and it doesn't work, then contact your counselor, get in touch with us, call Mr. Wardick, and we'll do everything we can to make an adjustment because we want this to work for you, for families.
In regards to curriculum and state tests, are there going to be any changes?
Curriculum and what, I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, state testing.
Right now, there is a state testing SAT date set for September or October. I don't remember now. Yeah, there's a testing date, but I think virtually most high schools in Illinois are probably going to be on some sort of a blended program the way we are. So at this point, I wouldn't stress about it. If it ends up being there, then we'll roll it out. We'll make sure kids are safe and we'll do the best job we possibly can. But there's a date I think we need to get closer right now before we know what that's going to be.
Dr. Pressler, can I jump in and
yeah, please
clarify? The scheduled date for the fall SAT is Wednesday, October 14th, and that's a makeup from the April SAT that we all missed.
Okay. So as it stands, there's a date. I think we need to get closer and see what life in Illinois looks like at that point.
Will the school base all providing COVID-19 testing?
Okay, I don't know about everybody else, but I do not have a clue what you just said because you broke up. Can you turn your camera off for a minute and maybe just
Sure.
see if that clears you up? Thanks.
Yes. Will the school-based health center be offering COVID-19 testing?
I don't know the answer to that. Let me check and find out, and we'll put that in the frequently asked question document. It's possible. Again, the testing is somewhat expensive and the results take a little while. So at this point, we have, I think they can probably give us referrals. So let me find out. If I told you something, I'd probably be making an answer up right now.
Is Maine East going to follow the same schedule as District 63?
I don't know. I had a conversation with Dr. Roberts, the principal over at Gemini today. And I know they're considering a number of different options for Gemini and for the elementaries. So we don't know what their schedule is yet. We know, we feel like we are out of time for the planning that we need to do. And again, based on what we've heard from our parents and our students about what they want from school, we feel like this is the best schedule we can offer for that balance between the educational quality and opportunities, the social opportunities, and for keeping people safe. So I don't know yet. We are not, we have not been working in tandem with any of the elementary districts right now.
How will transportation work going from school to work, and for children arriving on pace? How will transportation work from students arriving on pace until classes begin? And how will transportation work going from school to work?
From school to, you mean school back home?
I guess so.
Okay.
Back home or back to work,
All right.
wherever the might be going.
So I think transportation is an area, I'll tell you what I know now. And I think, there'll be some conversation. I don't know that our transportation situation will change. So as it stands now, students who are reliant on PACE are still going to need to rely on PACE. I don't know what the PACE guidelines are going to be, but the special runs in the morning still stand. We have been not been notified otherwise. If students need to come in a little bit earlier, we'll have a safe space for those students to be assigned to. And again, at the end of the day, the PACE buses will run per schedule. Or if students have other transportation options, by all means, they can use them. What else?
When are students going to be able to pick up materials?
So we have only sort of peripherally talked about this with Ms. Stewart. And our thinking right now is there's not really that much material that a student needs to pick up. I would say if you are a student who's transferring in new to the district, or if you are a freshman student and you do not yet have a Chromebook, you should contact the school immediately, and we will make arrangements for you to get the Chromebook, because that is your lifeline to the world in terms of contact. As far as the other things you're going to need, we'll probably try to coordinate that pickup with the same, like the first day or two that each student is physically in the building. So again, not a reason that we need to have people coming into the building an additional time and potentially, exposure, worrying about social distancing, that sort of thing. So this is another one of those things. Once we have a schedule locked in place, then we can start to build out all of these details that normally would have been very routine for us at this time of year. But I think that the material pickup, unless there's something you really need earlier, is going to be coordinated with the first day that you're in school as students. What else?
What additional supports will be provided for students who need more mental health supports?
That's a great question. So again, as I had mentioned earlier, hardly any student has got all 8 blocks assigned to class. So there are going to be those times when they're in the building that they'll be able to do, a one-on-one virtual meeting with their counselor, their social worker, their psych, with career services. We probably have the ability also to socially distance and to some extent have in-person meetings in the building. And we also know that virtual day, that Monday of every week that's planned out, we have very, very few students in the building. So that could be a point in time when, if there is a group that's meeting for, I don't know, anxiety. That might be a point when a few students, 5, 6, 7 may come in and meet with the person who is facilitating that group. They can remain socially distanced. We can schedule appointments. But I think we've got the ability to do quite a bit of programming, both in person and virtually throughout the week. As we get into the schedule, as we sort of get our legs under us on this, then we're going to be able to do more and more. But if there are specific things you're thinking, please put that in the question document, or you can always feel free to reach out to Mr. Wardick, and he's going to be able to probably point you in the right direction, answer your question, or say, we'll get back to you. What else?
Will hotspots be provided to students for their virtual days to make sure they have a reliable internet connection?
Yeah, I mean, it's not even for virtual days. Every student should have internet connection at home. So don't depend on only being connected when you're in the building, because at some point, again, something could happen and we could find out, over the weekend that we're fully virtual and we're not coming back next week. So again, you don't have a locker, so you're not going to leave things in your lockers. You're going to take your Chromebook home with you every day. You're going to bring it back to school with you fully charged every day. And if you don't have connectivity, contact us tomorrow or tonight. Send an email to that general, like, hey, I have a question, Maine East, or contact us next week and let us get you set up with a hotspot now. So again, you should have connectivity now. If you don't, please get a hold of us now so that we're not trying to play catch up when school is starting.
As a parent, I'm concerned about keeping up with the technology being used and being informed. What types of supports will be available to me as a parent to monitor my students' work during remote learning and also monitoring attendance?
That is a great question. I'm going to wait for the clock to stop and I'll talk for a moment here. We will offer up either and. I think we can do some short coaching tutorials. So for example, if you are not on the parent portal, we can help you get there. Depending on your level of confidence and experience using technology, you might be able, probably you can set yourself up. If you're not sure, you are not the Lone Ranger by any stretch of the imagination. You can get some help here and we'll get somebody who can walk you through it, even if it's a matter of you as a parent coming into the building, and we'll get somebody to sit down and kind of help you get that set up. We can do that as well. I think we probably, like, help me here, team, remember this. We need to think about some parent university sessions where we can do a live stream or something that is more two-way or Zoom, where we can have some targeted kinds of things. We could offer those up at various times of day, and maybe even, I know, even the possibility of some sort of in-service from our instructional coaches. We're supporting our teachers all the time, but as parents are trying to support their students at home, that could be a really tremendous thing. I know you guys are sitting around eating bonbons, waiting for another thing to do, but we could really support our parents, help support our students through that as well. So maybe something that we can look at. That's a really, really great question. Thank you for that.
How are we supporting students and build relationships with others, especially for new students?
Again, that's the reason that we're starting the slow roll. So on any given day, there are going to be at least 200 other students in that grade level in the building with your student. And specifically for freshmen, I mean, we are laser focused on making new friends. Now, again, most of our kids come from Gemini. The good news is you make new friends you never even knew were people at Gemini when you come over to high school. And there are also kids who are coming from other schools. And if I'm a student coming from Emerson, or if I'm coming from Chippewa, or if I'm coming from St. John, or you name the school, or if I'm transferring in from someplace else, you know what? You're going to be here for about 2 hours. And as long as you're willing to smile and say hello and be nice, you're going to end the day with a whole lot of new friends. And the thing I would say to the students, like the kids at Emerson and the kids who come from Chippewa, our experience is people at Maine East are really, really friendly. You're going to make a lot of new friends. And at the end of the day, you're still going to be friends with all the kids you were friends with at Emerson, even if they go on to some other school. It's kind of a bonus. You have twice as many friends. You've got a whole bunch of fantastic people that you're meeting at Maine East, and you're still staying in touch with your besties from Emerson when they go on down to that other high school on the south end of Park Ridge.
The next question is about in-person. If a family selects in-person instruction and then student starts school and they feel uncomfortable, will they be allowed to choose virtual only?
We're going to try to be as responsive as we possibly can because we know circumstances happen. To the extent we can, I'm going to say yes. I think the thing that would be more challenging for us would be somebody who goes full virtual and then they say they want to come in. But I think the way that we are building this out, I think we're going to have some ability to be flexible, but we don't want people sort of bouncing back and forth. To the extent you can commit, that's great, but we do know that individual circumstances can change, and we're certainly going to try to do everything we can to work with our students and their families. Allison, do you have any other sense of that? You're probably more connected to the conversations about full virtual and blended.
I think we're still having that conversation, trying to figure out, depending on when you mentioned how the parents need to reply and let us know if they're thinking that they want that all virtual, if they want the all virtual piece. I think that that's going to be just super important for us to look at those percentages to make some decisions.
Okay, thank you. What else?
You did not discuss fall sports. What is going to happen with that?
And I said specifically in my invitation that we will not be discussing fall sports tonight. So that being said, our camps so far have been tremendous in terms of our kids are following the routines and the protocols they need to. Our coaching staffs are great in terms of providing those good conditioning experiences and helping kids remember to distance and use face masks when appropriate. I know there are questions about band camp coming up and everything they're building out for the marching bands in all three schools very closely parallel the athletic procedures, but it's just too early. We don't know. We've, knock on wood, we've been lucky, and I really hope we stay super lucky. If you've listened to the news, there are some schools where they've had outbreaks of COVID with some of their athletic teams. But the IHSA, the Illinois High School Association, is continuing to monitor. And a lot of the times when we're waiting, it's because we're waiting for very clear guidance from IHSA. They are working with the Illinois State Board of Ed. They're working with the Illinois Department of Public Health. So again, this is very much a group effort to try to be consistent to ensure that everybody is safe and healthy. So I don't have more I can tell you. I'm sorry, I wish I could.
Okay, so one last question. I mean, we do have a ton of questions that are on here, but again, we're going to be able to probably respond to some of those on that
Sure.
Frequently asked questions document. Actually, this one is from Mike Bender. So he's wondering,
Bender.
are we still charging for parking at Maine East then for students?
Don't know. Thanks, Bender. Just put me on the spot. Mr. Bender, geez Louise. All right. So I want to thank everybody who's joined us here for your patience, hearing me go on and on. And I want to thank you for your fantastic questions, because all of those questions you're asking are going to help us think about any of the blind spots we haven't thought of. They're going to help us put more detail to our plan. They're going to help us consider some things we thought we were going to do, and maybe we need to take a step back and think about that again. The thing I can tell you is I'm pretty confident whatever plan we put in place and we build, however we're starting the school year, I'm sure we're going to have to adapt and modify through the year just based on this wild ride that we're on right now with COVID and the pandemic. So again, I'm going to ask for everybody to be extending grace to one another and be a little bit patient. And we all understand good and positive intent. everybody, I think, is doing the best they possibly can do. And we're going to work with each other shoulder to shoulder. We're going to do everything we can to lift each other up. We are very, very excited and very much looking forward to starting the school year and getting a chance to see all of you when we get to see you in the building. We'll provide more of these opportunities, whether they're live streams or some Zoom sessions. And, again, if you have questions, reach out to the school, and we'll do our very best to try to get back to you. I expect we're going to have a really high volume these next few days when we're answering questions, and we're also just trying to get answers for you as we go. But, if you really need to, you have a very specific circumstance, contact the school and we'll get you in touch with somebody who should be able to answer your questions. So thank you very much for your very kind attention, and hope you all will be safe and enjoy the summer, what's left of it here. Have a great weekend when it comes, and be looking for that survey, because again, we need to hear from every family at Maine East about what you're planning to do. And if you're going to give us more information on the survey to help fine tune whatever our schedule ends up being. Again, your questions are going to help us, I think, refine a lot of that. So again, thanks very, very much. Have a good rest of your evening, and we'll look forward to seeing you hopefully very soon. Take care now. Bye-bye.